He didn't just build a nation, he sealed its fate. In the shadows of Monticello and the mists of Virginia, George Washington performed rituals that still protect the continent. This isn't folklore. It's a translated fragment from his personal grimoire, found in the Library of Congress and immediately classified. A triangle scorched into the earth, 13 candles arranged in a star. That's how the invisible war for freedom began. He knew independence was impossible without invoking forces no one was meant to know. Why does the White House still echo the architecture of ancient Egyptian temples? What connects the first inauguration to the sudden vanishing of the moon over Manhattan in 1790? They called it a federation, but in truth, it's a magical shield. Ready to decode the symbol on the dollar bill? George Washington, the founding father of the United States, wasn't just a hero of the American Revolution. He was deeply initiated into ancient knowledge and rituals that allowed him not only to manipulate fate on the battlefield, but also to protect the nation from supernatural threats. Everything you were told about Washington in history books was a lie. His actions were part of a much deeper plan, based on ancient Egyptian and Mesopotamian rituals that could change the course of world history. You thought George Washington was just a political leader, a nation builder fighting for independence and freedom. You were wrong. The story they told you was fabricated to hide the truth. Washington wasn't just a member of the Masonic order. He was a conduit for ancient forces, wielding powers that were meant to protect America from dark, hidden forces that no other country could handle. Many people know that Washington was a Freemason, that he used symbols and rituals to strengthen his influence. But in reality, Masonic symbolism is just the tip of the iceberg. Washington was far more connected to ancient cultures than we can imagine. His pivotal role in founding the country was not only political, it was spiritual. Some of the most influential Freemasons of the time, like Benjamin Franklin and John Adams, were aware of secrets that could change the global order. In 1789, right after his inauguration, Washington held a secret meeting with high-ranking members of his inner circle, people whose names never appear in official histories, but who played a crucial role in establishing the United States. These individuals were connected to ancient religious practices that traced their origins to Egypt and Mesopotamia. Their mission was to create a new world power, one not based on armies or weapons, but on mystical forces and ancient knowledge that allowed them to control events. In his diary, Washington mentions meetings with scholars who were studying ancient texts found in Egypt. These texts, allegedly, contained rituals capable of opening doors to parallel worlds and influencing human consciousness and fate. According to some scholars, most of what we know about Freemasonry is actually disinformation meant to conceal deeper truths. One of these truths is the existence of ancient rituals that could prevent catastrophes or steer the course of war in the desired direction. These secrets weren't available to the masses, but Washington knew how to use them to ensure the safety of the fledgling nation. Some researchers claim that at the moment of his inauguration, when Washington took his oath, he used specific symbols and words that were part of these ancient rituals. These symbols allowed him not only to secure support from higher forces, but also ensured his invincibility during the early years of the country's existence. But what if all of this wasn't just about winning a war? What if Washington's real goal wasn't just to create an independent nation, but to protect America from forces we can't even imagine? Were these rituals part of a broader plan to prevent global catastrophes or encounters with civilizations we fear and know nothing about? Washington understood that America wasn't just another country. It was the final bastion for humanity against dark forces no one else could handle. He knew that, to survive in this world, you needed more than just weapons. You needed to control unimaginable forces that lie beyond ordinary understanding. Throughout his life, Washington used the power of ancient rituals to safeguard the nation from threats that remained invisible to ordinary people. But what happened to this knowledge? Where is it now? And who controls it? This wasn't just a fight for independence. It was the beginning of what was meant to be a new era, an era of hidden forces and how the great leaders of the world used them to steer the course of history. So what do you really think you know about this great man? In the heart of America's revolutionary history, there exists a dark secret. George Washington, the first president, was not only a founding father, he was an occultist, a man deeply connected to ancient rites and rituals long forgotten by the world. His fight for freedom was more than a political struggle. It was a battle to harness forbidden knowledge, to protect the nation from forces older than time itself. What they told you in school is a carefully crafted lie. Washington wasn't just leading a revolution. He was guarding the world from an ancient force, hidden in the shadows, waiting to rise. You think you know Washington? You think he was a man of reason, simply striving to create a new nation? Think again. The story we've been fed is a smokescreen, designed to conceal the real Washington, the one who was initiated into ancient mystical societies that had been around long before America itself. Washington was not simply a man of the Enlightenment. He was a man with a purpose, working alongside a hidden brotherhood that operated in the shadows. These men, some of the most powerful figures in history, were following a higher calling, one that, if known, would destroy everything we believe about the origins of this country. We've all heard that Washington was a Freemason, but that's just the surface. Freemasonry was merely a cover, a vehicle for something much more ancient. Washington's true allegiance wasn't to the ideals of liberty. It was to something far darker, something tied to the ancient rituals of Egypt and Mesopotamia. Washington wasn't just fighting for freedom. He was preparing America for a battle far greater than independence. He was preparing America to confront the unknown, to stand as the last defense against a forgotten force that could alter the very fabric of reality itself. In 1789, shortly after his inauguration, Washington took part in a secretive ceremony, a ritual that had been passed down through the ages, from the pharaohs of Egypt to the kings of Mesopotamia. This wasn't a political move. This was a spiritual war. Washington and a small group of trusted men gathered in private, performing rites that were designed to protect not just the nation, but the world from a malevolent force that had once ruled over ancient civilizations. Their goal was not only independence, they sought something far more powerful: control over the hidden forces that manipulated the destiny of humanity. Washington's personal diaries hint at this secret life. Entries that have never been fully revealed to the public detail his meetings with alchemists, astrologers, and mystics, all of whom were working to decode ancient prophecies. These were not just the ravings of men seeking to control the future. They were the last remnants of a civilization that had mastered the forces of nature long before the first revolution. Let's be clear, this is not just conspiracy theory. The evidence is there, buried beneath the surface. Scholars have long suspected that Washington, like many of the men around him, was part of a much larger occult tradition, one that merged science, mysticism, and ancient rituals. Historians often dismiss these claims as fantasy. But the truth is stranger than fiction. The symbols used by the Freemasons are far older than they seem, and the rituals they practiced were designed not just for initiation, but to unlock the hidden powers of the universe. Washington was not just using these symbols for political gain. He was tapping into something far more dangerous, something that could tip the balance of world power forever. What if Washington's real role was never about freedom or nation building? What if his mission was to protect us from an ancient, unseen force that's still out there, watching? What if the American Revolution wasn't just about throwing off tyranny, but preparing the country to face something much darker? Something we still don't understand. Could the revolution have been a smokescreen to hide the true purpose behind the founding of America? Could the real enemies of this country not be foreign invaders, but something far more sinister and incomprehensible? Washington, like many great leaders throughout history, understood that survival doesn't depend on military might alone. To protect the future of humanity, one must control forces beyond human comprehension, forces that most are too terrified to even acknowledge. The Founding Fathers weren't just concerned with creating a new nation. They were protecting the world from the dark remnants of an ancient civilization that had been wiped from history. Their work was not merely political, it was spiritual, and Washington was its greatest guardian. But what happened to the knowledge they uncovered? Where did these rituals and secrets go after Washington's death? Were they lost to history, or are they still being guarded, hidden away from the public eye? And who is controlling this knowledge now? This was never just a fight for independence. It was the beginning of something far greater. A secret war, fought not with guns or armies, but with ancient knowledge and supernatural forces. If you think you know the real story of Washington, think again. The truth is out there, and it's more dangerous than you ever imagined. Are you ready to find out what's really been hidden from you? The revolution was never what it seemed. Washington didn't just fight for freedom. He fought to secure the future of America against powers that no army could ever defeat. He was not only a general and a politician, he was a keeper of ancient secrets, sworn to protect the country from a force older than time itself. In the dark corners of history, the truth is lurking, and it's more dangerous than you ever imagined. Washington didn't just defeat the British, he faced something far more terrifying. And what he uncovered in those ancient texts, it was the key to humanity's survival. For over 2 centuries, you've been told that Washington was simply a man of principle, a revolutionary leader. But what if that was the lie? What if his role in history was to conceal a far more profound secret? Washington's real purpose was never just to lead a war or create a country. It was to protect humanity from a hidden force that has been shaping history from the shadows. These ancient rituals weren't just for political power. They were a weapon against something far darker than anything you've been told. It's well known that Washington was a Freemason. But what they didn't tell you is that Freemasonry was only a front for something far more ancient and dangerous. In the hidden archives, there are clues that suggest Washington and his circle had access to powerful artifacts, forgotten knowledge, and ancient texts that could manipulate fate itself. These weren't just rituals. They were tools capable of controlling time, space, and the forces that shape reality. Washington wasn't simply playing politics. He was preparing to defend the country against forces that most people can't even comprehend. Before the Revolution, Washington had already been exposed to the most sacred knowledge of ancient civilizations, knowledge passed down from the Egyptians, Sumerians, and even the lost civilizations of Atlantis. In secret meetings with his closest allies, Washington discussed these ancient rituals. These were not just symbolic practices. They were actual techniques for communicating with higher dimensional beings, manipulating time, and altering the very fabric of reality. Washington understood that to create a new nation, he needed more than just political tactics. He needed the power to ensure America's survival in the face of forces that ordinary men couldn't fathom. In his journals, hidden for centuries, Washington wrote about strange symbols and codes he had encountered during his travels, and his encounters with mystical men who spoke in riddles. These men weren't merely scholars. They were guardians of an ancient truth, and Washington had been chosen to continue their mission. The revolution was merely the beginning of a larger, cosmic struggle. The historical records are clear. Washington was a master of symbolism, but symbolism alone couldn't explain the strange, inexplicable events that surrounded his rise to power. There are reports of mystical occurrences during Washington's battles, inexplicable victories, and uncanny good fortune that can't be explained by strategy or luck alone. Could it be that Washington was using ancient knowledge, rituals learned from long-lost texts, to guide his decisions? This isn't just superstition. Modern scientists are uncovering the truth about how ancient practices can influence human consciousness and even shape the physical world. Historians who have researched the so-called Rosicrucian connections of Washington's circle have found unsettling links to alchemical and occult practices that were used to control reality itself. Could these hidden practices have allowed Washington to influence not just battles, but entire events in history? Were these rituals the secret behind his invincibility? What if the greatest battle Washington faced wasn't against the British? What if the real enemy was something far older? Something that had been watching America since its inception? Could the founding of this nation have been designed as a shield against an ancient threat that was poised to return? The truth is hidden in plain sight, and it's been right under our noses for centuries. What Washington uncovered might be the key to stopping this force from returning. But who else knows the truth? History is written by the victors, but what if the victors weren't just human? What if, throughout history, there have been secret guardians of humanity working behind the scenes to protect the future from the forces that wish to destroy it? Washington wasn't just an ordinary man. He was part of a long line of secret protectors, chosen to stand against the dark forces that have always sought to manipulate history. But now, as the centuries pass, those who control this knowledge are becoming more desperate, and the forces they are protecting us from are drawing closer. So, what happened after Washington's death? What happened to the knowledge he uncovered? Some say it was lost, but others believe it was passed down in secret, to be used by those who could be trusted. The rituals, the symbols, the forbidden knowledge, are they still out there? Are there people in power today who are using these ancient practices to shape the future of the world? The truth has been hidden, but now it's time for it to surface. This story has only just begun. Washington's role in history was never just political. He was a guardian of something far greater, something that we still don't understand. The revolution was only the first step in a battle that continues today. And if you think you've learned everything about Washington, think again. The truth is waiting to be uncovered, and it's more dangerous than you can imagine. Are you ready to face it? Maston Stomi. What if I told you that the true enemy Washington fought against wasn't the British, but something far more dangerous? Something that continues to lurk behind the scenes, manipulating events in history and shaping the future of America. Washington's fight for independence was not just a political struggle. It was the beginning of a covert war against an ancient, supernatural force. And that force, it's still here, hidden in plain sight. The revolution wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. What if the story of George Washington, as told to you in history books, was designed to conceal the truth? What if the revolution wasn't about liberty, but about stopping an ancient, world-shattering force from seizing control of humanity? The truth is far darker than you've been led to believe. Washington knew that the battle for freedom wasn't just political. It was spiritual. And the real enemy he faced was far more terrifying than any army. You've been told that Washington fought for liberty, but that was just a cover story. His true mission was to stop a force that sought to enslave humanity, not just physically, but spiritually. And he wasn't alone. The Founding Fathers were part of a secret, shadowy order that had been tasked with guarding the world from this threat. But what happened to that knowledge after their deaths? And why does no one talk about it today? Washington wasn't just a general. He was the leader of a secret order of mystics and occultists. In the hidden archives, there are references to ancient, forbidden texts that Washington studied. Texts that spoke of powerful entities, forces that could manipulate human destiny and time itself. Washington wasn't fighting for political power. He was fighting for the very survival of humanity. And the key to defeating this ancient force lay in unlocking the secrets of these lost civilizations. It wasn't just about defeating the British. It was about preparing for the arrival of a force that had been dormant for centuries, a force that would one day threaten to reshape the world. Washington understood this better than anyone, and it's why he took part in rituals, secret meetings, and occult practices that most of his contemporaries could never have imagined. The revolution wasn't about independence. It was about protecting the world from something far worse. In the early days of America, Washington's mission was not just political, it was prophetic. He and a select group of men knew that the fate of the world rested on their shoulders. The founding of America was not simply a break from tyranny. It was a shield, forged in secret, to protect the world from an ancient, unseen power that had been manipulating history for thousands of years. Washington's involvement with sacred societies, most notably the Freemasons, was only the tip of the iceberg. These groups were not just political. They were connected to an ancient esoteric order that sought to keep humanity's destiny under control. Washington, in his pursuit of freedom, was also working to unlock the secrets of these ancient forces, secrets that could either save or destroy mankind. Through his diaries, we know that Washington was deeply involved in rituals that linked him to the ancient world. These weren't just symbolic acts. They were designed to tap into a hidden power, one that had been wielded by the rulers of lost civilizations like Atlantis, Sumeria, and Egypt. What Washington discovered in these rituals was the key to stopping a return of the ancient powers that had once ruled the earth. Historians often dismiss these ideas as fantasy, but recent breakthroughs in quantum physics and metaphysics are revealing something startling. The ancient knowledge Washington uncovered wasn't just mystical ramblings. It was science. The rituals he performed weren't just about symbols or rites. They were attempts to tap into hidden dimensions of reality. Some modern scientists believe that ancient civilizations were far more advanced than we think, and that they understood the nature of time, space, and energy in ways that modern science is just beginning to comprehend. Washington's writings and the secret texts he studied may hold the answers to questions that science has been asking for centuries. Could these ancient rituals have been a form of early quantum mechanics? Could they have been attempts to control not just the physical world, but the very fabric of time and space? The truth is out there, buried beneath centuries of misdirection and manipulation. What if the knowledge Washington uncovered didn't die with him? What if it was passed down, hidden from the public, to those who could protect it? What if the real power in the world today, the hidden elite, has been using this knowledge to shape history, to guide world events, and to control the future of humanity? The ancient force that Washington fought against hasn't disappeared. It's been lying in wait, and it's more powerful than ever. The real battle is just beginning. If Washington's mission was about more than just freedom, if it was about guarding humanity against an ancient power, then what does that mean for us today? Are we still under threat? Could the forces Washington fought against be preparing to rise once more? And if they do, who will stand against them? Washington's legacy isn't just about creating a nation. It's about protecting the world from an enemy that has always been there, lurking in the shadows. It's a reminder that our greatest battles aren't fought with weapons, but with the hidden knowledge that shapes our very reality. But what if everything we've been taught about Washington is wrong? What if the truth about his life and the hidden knowledge he uncovered was kept secret, buried to protect us from the dangers it holds? If these secrets are real, what could they mean for our future? What if the events of today are being shaped by the same ancient forces that Washington fought against? The truth is still out there, and it's more dangerous than you could ever imagine. What if Washington's true mission was never about creating a nation? It was about preventing an ancient force from rising again. If you think you know the truth about the American Revolution, you're only scratching the surface. The hidden history of America is more than just a political tale. It's a battle for humanity's future. And the war that Washington started is far from over. Are you ready to uncover the secrets that have been hidden for centuries? Lastidim. Everything you thought you knew about George Washington's role in shaping America is wrong. This is not just a story of a military leader and political hero. What if Washington's true mission was far more profound and deadly? What if his revolution wasn't just against Britain, but against something far darker and more ancient? An ancient force hidden in the deepest corners of history that threatened the very fabric of reality. And what if Washington knew the terrifying truth behind America's creation, one that continues to influence everything we know today? For centuries, the story of Washington has been packaged as one of freedom and victory. But what if I told you that the revolution was a smokescreen? That Washington and his circle were not merely fighting to free America from British rule, but to prevent a disaster that could alter the course of human history? There are secrets buried deep within Washington's legacy, hidden codes and symbols that point to a far darker truth. A truth that has been concealed for generations. This isn't just a conspiracy. This is the story of the hidden war that Washington fought to protect us all. And now, it's time you knew the real reason he became the first president. Most Americans don't realize that Washington was part of a secret society, a secret brotherhood that has existed for centuries, hiding ancient knowledge from the world. But this wasn't just any society. The Freemasons, the group Washington was a part of, were the public face of something much older. They weren't just interested in political power. They were protecting something far more dangerous, something far more powerful than anyone could imagine. It wasn't just about gold or influence. They were guarding an ancient, forbidden power, an otherworldly secret that could destroy the world as we know it. Long before the Declaration of Independence, Washington had already uncovered a hidden truth. He had come across ancient texts, relics, and symbols that led him to a startling conclusion. The American Revolution wasn't just about independence. It was about ensuring humanity's survival. Washington wasn't just building a new nation. He was creating a fortress, a shield to protect humanity from forces older than any government or empire. And this threat wasn't just political. It was supernatural. Washington had discovered the existence of powerful, malevolent entities that were manipulating history from the shadows. These entities had influenced civilizations long before America's birth, and now they were planning to reclaim control. The rituals Washington participated in, many of which have been lost to time, were meant to unlock the power necessary to defeat these entities. They weren't just simple Masonic rites. They were designed to tap into ancient forces and summon protection from dimensions outside our understanding. Washington was not just securing a political future. He was laying the groundwork for humanity's ultimate survival. If you think this sounds like fantasy, you're not alone. But recent scientific discoveries are beginning to support what Washington and his peers believed. The ancient texts Washington studied were not just allegories. They were based on real knowledge of the universe and the forces that shape it. Quantum physics is now beginning to uncover the idea that reality is not what we think it is, that there are higher dimensions beyond our perception, and that these dimensions might be home to entities far more powerful than anything we could ever imagine. Washington's involvement with these ancient practices was not some quaint relic of history. It was part of a much deeper understanding of reality that was passed down from one generation of guardians to the next. The Freemasons were just the latest in a long line of secret protectors, trained to harness and control the power that Washington uncovered. And that power, it's still out there, waiting to be activated. But here's the shocking twist. Washington's discovery wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. After his death, the knowledge he uncovered didn't vanish. It was kept hidden, passed down through secret societies, buried beneath layers of deception. Some of the most powerful people in the world today know the truth. They know that the revolution wasn't just a fight for political freedom. It was a fight to keep the ancient forces at bay. But now, those forces are waking up, and the very existence of the United States could be the key to preventing the return of an ancient evil. If Washington and his allies were guardians of ancient knowledge, then who is guarding it today? In the modern world, we're told that science and logic have replaced superstition and magic. But what if we're missing the bigger picture? What if the ancient forces that Washington fought against are still here, still influencing events behind the scenes, and we're powerless to stop them? The truth is out there, waiting for us to uncover it. But do we really want to know the full extent of what Washington was protecting us from? The story of Washington doesn't end with the signing of the Declaration of Independence. It doesn't end with the formation of a new nation. The truth is far darker than any of us could have imagined. The revolution was just a small part of a much larger war. And now, decades after Washington's death, the battle continues. The forces he fought against are rising again, and we may be closer to the edge of destruction than we realize. Do you think you know the story of George Washington? Do you believe he was just a soldier and a politician? Think again. The truth about Washington's legacy is far more terrifying, far more significant than anything we've been told. His mission was never just about freedom. It was about saving the world from a power so ancient, so destructive, that it could end everything we know. The war Washington fought against is not over. It's only just begun. And the next battle, it's ours to face. You've been told that George Washington was a simple soldier, a founding father, a hero who fought for liberty. But what if the truth was far darker? What if Washington wasn't just battling the British? What if his revolution wasn't merely about independence, but about protecting humanity from an ancient force, one that had been lurking beneath the surface of history, waiting for the right moment to emerge again? What if everything we know about America's foundation was a carefully constructed facade, hiding something far more sinister? The American Revolution wasn't just about freedom. It wasn't about simply throwing off the shackles of the British Empire. There was another war being fought, one hidden in the shadows, a battle for control of the very fabric of reality itself. Washington, along with the other founding fathers, knew that their fight was about more than just political power. They were the keepers of a secret, one that, if uncovered, could shatter everything we know about the world. A secret that involved forces older and darker than anything you can imagine. Washington was not just a general, he was a guardian. The truth about his role in the creation of America is far more complex, far more dangerous than history has ever allowed us to know. You've heard of Freemasons, Illuminati, and secret societies. But what if I told you that these groups were just part of a much larger, more ancient order? A hidden brotherhood that has existed since the dawn of civilization, dedicated not to political power, but to something far darker, something much more sinister. Washington himself was deeply involved in this hidden world, and he knew the ancient truths that have been locked away from the public for centuries. The real revolution wasn't about creating a nation. It was about keeping a hidden power from awakening, a power that could have destroyed not only America, but the entire world. Long before the Declaration of Independence was signed, George Washington had already uncovered a truth that would change the course of history forever. As a soldier and a Freemason, he came across ancient texts, cryptic symbols, and hidden knowledge that revealed a terrifying reality. The revolution wasn't just a fight for freedom, it was a fight for survival. The founding fathers weren't just resisting British tyranny, they were protecting the world from an ancient, malevolent force that had once ruled over humanity and was now seeking to return. Washington didn't just fight to liberate the American colonies. He fought to prevent the rise of an ancient evil, one that could control the fate of humanity itself. His military campaigns, his alliances with other secret societies, were all part of a much larger plan. A plan to contain a force that had been suppressed for millennia. The Freemasons weren't just a social club. They were the front lines of a hidden war, guarding the knowledge and power necessary to prevent the return of this force. And Washington, as their leader, was the most powerful weapon in that battle. But the deeper Washington went into these hidden truths, the more he realized that the war was far from over. The battle to protect humanity from this ancient power continues to this very day. Most historians dismiss the idea of Washington being involved in mystical or occult practices. They claim these were just rituals with no real power. But what if these ancient rituals held far more truth than we've been led to believe? Modern science is now beginning to explore the existence of parallel dimensions, alternate realities, and the idea that consciousness can affect the fabric of the universe. What if the rituals Washington practiced weren't just for show, but were a key to accessing a hidden dimension, one that holds the answers to humanity's greatest mysteries? The reality Washington uncovered wasn't just political, it was metaphysical. His rituals weren't about symbols. They were about tapping into powers beyond our comprehension. And if Washington was able to unlock these ancient forces, then the question remains, what did he find? What did he uncover? And why was it kept hidden from the world? But here's the twist. Washington wasn't the only one who knew about these forces. He wasn't the only one guarding this dark secret. There were others, powerful figures throughout history, who also knew of the ancient threat and sought to control it for their own purposes. And after Washington's death, these secret societies continued to guard the knowledge he uncovered, hidden in plain sight, locked away in the symbols and rituals passed down through generations. As the centuries passed, these groups didn't just guard the knowledge. They actively worked to suppress it, to keep the truth buried so that humanity would never awaken to the full extent of the danger. But what if the truth is starting to slip through the cracks? What if the ancient forces that Washington fought against are slowly beginning to wake up? And what if the world we live in today is on the verge of a new, even darker revolution? If Washington was protecting humanity from an ancient force, then why does it feel like we're living in an age of chaos, with everything falling apart? Could it be that the forces he fought against are still with us today, hidden in plain sight, pulling the strings behind the scenes? What if the wars, the divisions, the crises we face aren't just random events? They're the result of a much older conflict, one that has been raging for centuries, unseen by most of humanity. The more you think about it, the more you realize that Washington's story isn't just one of revolution, it's a warning that the forces he battled are still out there, still waiting for the right moment to strike. And if history is any guide, that moment may be closer than we think. Imagine that everything you've been told about the American Revolution is wrong. Imagine that Washington's real fight wasn't just for liberty. It was to keep a hidden, ancient power from rising again. The secrets Washington uncovered are buried beneath layers of history, but they're starting to surface. And when they do, everything you know about the world will change forever. You think you know the truth about George Washington, but what if everything you've been taught is a lie? What if his revolution wasn't just about freedom, but about saving humanity from an ancient, malevolent force? The hidden knowledge Washington uncovered is more than just a political secret. It's the key to understanding the true battle that's been raging throughout history. And now, as the world teeters on the edge of chaos, the question is, are you ready to face the dark forces that Washington fought to keep at bay? Yastils. And now, as the world enters a new age of uncertainty, the truth is becoming harder to ignore. Every piece of history we've been taught, every symbol we've passed by without a second thought, is a clue, a breadcrumb trail left by Washington and his allies. But what if these breadcrumbs aren't meant for us to follow? What if they're a warning, a map to something darker than we could ever imagine? The forces that Washington fought to keep buried are stirring once more. They've been waiting, watching, and influencing the course of history from the shadows. Wars, economic collapse, political unrest, the rise of new powers. Could all of these be symptoms of a much older, more terrifying conflict that refuses to stay buried? What if the chaos we see today is not random, but the result of this ancient battle for control of reality itself? Washington knew the world he was creating, this new America, was more than just a political experiment. It was a bulwark against something far more insidious. As the Founding Fathers crafted the Constitution, what if they weren't just securing a nation, but sealing a door, locking away a force they had no choice but to contain? Look around you. The signs are everywhere, if you know where to look. Symbols carved into monuments, hidden messages in the architecture, cryptic phrases in the writings of our most revered leaders. All of them are remnants of a forgotten war. The question isn't whether Washington succeeded in his mission. The question is whether we are prepared for the awakening of the ancient power he fought so desperately to keep at bay. As the centuries roll on, the power structures that have evolved may not be what they seem. The secret societies Washington protected, those that have survived in one form or another, are not passive players. They have kept watch, waiting for the moment when humanity is unprepared to face the truth. They know that once the veil is lifted, the world will never be the same. And so, the question that must be asked is, are we ready for the truth? Are we prepared to confront the forces that Washington fought to suppress? Because when they rise, they will not just shake the foundations of nations. They will bend the very fabric of our reality. The revolution wasn't just about independence. It was about survival. Peregrine, the great symbol of Washington's resistance, is not just a bird of flight. It is the messenger of doom, watching, waiting. The question is no longer whether the dark forces will return, but when they will return. And perhaps most importantly, who will be left to face them when they do. Everything you think you know about the history of America, about George Washington, about the battle for freedom, it's a smoke screen. The true story is much darker, much more dangerous. And the time to uncover it is now. Because once the truth is out, once it spreads like wildfire, there will be no going back. We are on the verge of the final awakening.